Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Speak your words of wisdom, for the words you speak are everlasting life.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him. And the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man." And then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they may invite you back and you have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord.
Good morning once again. A priest preaching on today's gospel started his homily by saying, humility is a very difficult virtue. Tremendously difficult virtue. Thank God I have it. There you go. Today's gospel, Jesus clearly is teaching us the need for true humility. And the same thing in the first reading. We have from the book of Sirach. Sirach was one of the learned sages in Israel before the time of Jesus, saying, "My son, conduct your affairs with humility." conduct your affairs with humility. And as I said, the gospel, we heard it. Jesus gave us a very smart, parable about humility. When you're invited to a wedding, to a banquet, do not seek those places of honor, because your host might have invited a more important person than you are, and you will be embarrassed when you'll be asked to vacate your seat and go to a lower place. So why is it that humility is very important for us as followers of Christ? If we are truly humble, if we possess this virtue, we surely be very effective in evangelizing our society today. So, what is humility according to the teaching of Jesus? It might help us to, describe first humility. What humility is not. And I would like to use, C.S. Lewis, a 20th century Christian writer and theologian, who says that humility is not thinking less of yourself as much as thinking of yourself less. I don't know if you notice a difference, kind of play of words, but there is a difference there. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, because that would mean self-deprecation. And that is not what humility is. Rather, it is thinking of yourself less, because you are thinking of the welfare of others. It's like prioritizing the needs of others more than your own needs. That is what humility is. And because humility is recognizing the true worth of our person. It is not self-degrading. It is not self-deprecation. It is recognizing our true worth, our gifts, our talents that God gave us. And that true worth is based on that human dignity, that is, we have been created in the image and likeness of God. That is our true worth. In other words, humility helps us to see ourselves as God sees us. And so there's no need for us to be proud. There's no need for us to brag about ourselves. There's no need for us to be so full of ourselves. I remember this story. This was during the American Revolution. A man in civilian clothes rode past a group of soldiers trying to pull a horse-driven carriage, and from the thick of mud, and their officer was shouting instructions at them, but not helping them. And so this man in civilian clothes said, "Officer, why are you not helping your men?" And this officer said, "Sir, I am a corporal." And so this man in civilian clothes dismounted from his horse and proceeded to help the soldiers who were exhausted in trying to pull the horse-driven carriage from the mud. And after completing the job, he said to the officer, "Mr. Corporal, the next time you have this situation and you don't have enough people, do not hesitate to inform your commander-in-chief, and I will come and help you again." Too late for this proud officer to find out that this man was General George Washington, the first president of the United States. Humility is not about, is really pointing to that pride in ourselves. It doesn't become less of you, actually, to help. It didn't become less of General George Washington to help the soldiers. That was his message to the officer. When Jesus said that when you are invited to a banquet, do not seek for places of honor. And we love that. We want that, isn't it? We don't want to, when we go to a banquet, we don't want to be in the sidelines. Because we thought that makes us important people. No. Because in the image and likeness of God, we are important. That is our true worth. And so, this is the message that the Lord Jesus is telling us today. This is a very important, a very necessary virtue. The priest was right. It's a very difficult virtue. He was wrong in the second part, saying that, thank God I have it. But this is what we need during this time. We know our society today is so poisoned with pride, with arrogance. We see this in the social media. It's full of, people are just full of themselves. There's no more respect. No more respect for human dignity. And this is what we need. If we want to make a difference in our society today, this is the virtue that we need. Mahatma Gandhi, of course, many decades ago, but he was the politician who really transformed the society in India, who championed liberation and freedom and non-violence. And he said, he studied a lot Christianity. In fact, he read the Bible, and his favorite are the Gospels. He was so convinced of Christ that he wanted to become a Christian. And he said, I could have become a Christian had it not been of Christians. It was our poor, our bad witnessing that discouraged him to become one. But he was ready. In fact, he once joined a Christian service. But then he was turned down. He was asked to leave the church. And so that was the end of it. Brothers and sisters, humility is the virtue that we need if we want not just to influence our society in the right way, but of course, as we continue to journey to our real home.